Back to our top story, where the impeachment inquiry took a drastic turn yesterday after a top U.S. diplomat delivered what House Democrats described as damning and disturbing testimony. Bill Taylor detailed his account of President Trump's dealings with Ukraine, and he said the president wanted to hold up military aid to Ukraine in exchange for the country's commitment to investigate Democrats and a company linked to Joe Biden's son. The White House called the inquiry a coordinated smear campaign and said that there was no quid pro quo on Ukraine. So Nancy Cordes is on Capitol Hill. Nancy, what else did we learn from Taylor's testimony? I mean, his opening statement alone was quite lengthy.
It was, and it was very detailed. He laid out phone calls and meetings and texts and cables in which this strategy to pressure the Ukrainians was discussed, and where the Ukrainians themselves were told what to say to make President Trump happy. Taylor said he found all of this alarming and made it clear that he does believe that there was a quid pro quo aimed at providing personal gain for the president.
Mr. Taylor, what led you to be concerned about a quid pro quo? In nearly 10 hours of testimony, Ambassador Bill Taylor described a secret campaign to pressure Ukraine, using millions in military aid as leverage.
This is my most disturbing day in Congress so far. Very troubling.
He is probably one of the most...
Well, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg defended his company today on Capitol Hill during a hearing that was supposed to focus on the company's new cryptocurrency, Libra. But members of the House Financial Services Committee also pressed Zuckerberg on several other issues. The Facebook CEO discussed election security and policing, certain platforms on certain content on the platform. Zuckerberg also struggled to explain how Facebook handles misleading political ads. Here's an exchange with Congresswoman and Chair Maxine Waters.
You plan on doing no fact-checking on political ads?
Chairwoman, our policy is that we do not fact-check politicians' speech.
Do you fact-check on any ads at all?
Yes.
Describe what you fact-check on.
Well, Chairwoman, actually, thank you for the opportunity to clarify. Facebook itself actually does not fact-check.
So let me be clear. You do no fact-checking on any ads. Is that correct?
Chairwoman, what we do is we work with a set of independent fact-checkers who...
Somebody fact-checks on ads. You contract with someone to do that. Is that right?
Chairwoman, yes.
CNET senior producer Dan Patterson joins me now. Whoa. All right. I'm so confused at this point. What was the point that she was trying to make here?
Well, that, look, political ads on Facebook have famously, at least recently, gone unfact-checked. And Facebook's argument here is that they want the public to be able to read a politician's speech, no matter what that speech is, so they can get a full understanding of the scope of what that politician is suggesting. What happened here is that he kind of glazed over the fact that Facebook doesn't directly check content. They use third-party checkers. They also use algorithms that they call artificial intelligence. Really, this goes through and finds the immediately problematic content and flags it so that their third-party contractors can go in and add additional content. But this difference between politicians' ads and regular ads is what has really been controversial, and we still didn't get a solid answer out of him as to why.
You know, Facebook clearly also under a lot of scrutiny from the past election with misinformation. Here's what Zuckerberg had to say about that.
You're right that in 2016 we were on our back foot in terms of preventing Russia from attempting to interfere in our elections. We've spent a lot of the last few years building systems that are more sophisticated than any other company has at this point, and frankly a lot of governments too, for defending against foreign interference. This Monday we announced that we had proactively identified a network of fake Russian accounts and a few networks of Iranian fake accounts that we proactively took down, which certainly, as you say, signals that these nation states are still attempting to interfere, but I hope will also give us some confidence that our systems are now more sophisticated to proactively identify and address these things.
So when he talks about proactively identifying this, how much of it is AI targeting this, and how much are human moderators?
A lot is AI. Let's give Facebook the benefit of the doubt for a moment. 2 billion users is a lot of users, and that content, even if it's a small percentage of 2 billion users that is problematic, that could be a significant percentage. So they almost have to use automated systems like AI to find content and flag it. Sometimes they demote content, or the AI automatically demotes content, but for the most part, it flags content for third parties to go through. However, that system itself has been heavily scrutinized. In fact, the Columbia Journalism Review, Matthew Ingram, writing very recently, said that these flags, these categories are overly broad, and the flags that they use are not particularly accurate, which makes the job, the AI makes the job of the human third-party fact checkers even more difficult.
And it's not just misinformation. You know, he was also grilled about child pornography, about these deep fakes that keep circulating.
Yep.
I mean, realistically, are they ever going to get their hands around this?
Well, it's, again, giving Facebook the benefit of the doubt. With 2 billion users, it would be nearly impossible for them to get every instance of misinformation spreading across the site, even accidental misinformation. It would be nearly impossible for them to wipe that out. So what they try to do is target networks, right? So if you're playing whack-a-mole with each little piece of information that pops up, you'll never grow. You'll never do anything different. You will only moderate the system. So instead, by targeting these networks, they're able to break up systemically the organized crime and the political actors that are trying to spread misinformation across the site. Whether that's effective or not has been also pretty contentious.
The real point of this hearing was to talk about Libra, which is a cryptocurrency that Facebook co-founded. What did Zuckerberg have to say?
Well, they will not enter the market, he says, without regulatory approval, or at least the best will of regulators here in the States. Look, they've really tried to push this as something that has trust built into it. But when these financial institutions like PayPal and others started to back out recently, it really undermined the faith and confidence that we might have in Facebook's ability to moderate a financial system as well as a content system.
Is this the beginning of the end for Libra? Does it have another life? Are they hanging on?
No, it seems like they are full steam ahead. It is based in Geneva, and they're still saying 2020 we'll see Libra.
All right. You know, it was also interesting. Kentucky Congressman Andy Barr came forward and said one of the problems is Facebook is somewhat being stifled with innovation. What do you think he was trying to make, the point he was trying to make there?
Well, the point he was trying to make, or at least the point that it seemed like he was trying to make, was that regulators in Congress are just not sophisticated enough to regulate an entity like Facebook or most tech companies, and that we benefit from the innovations that they bring in ways that we really aren't even aware of. And to a certain extent, that's very true. Look, our lawmakers need to increase their sophistication if they're going to pass regulation that can protect consumers at the same time they allow businesses like Facebook to flourish.
Dan Patterson, thank you for joining us, Dan.
Good to see you.
Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. We're going to begin with a dramatic sideshow today at the impeachment inquiry. As if on cue, following President Trump's orders yesterday for Republicans to get tougher on impeachment, a group of Republicans barged into a closed-door hearing today. Most were not members of the committees conducting the inquiry and were therefore uninvited. But Republicans who are on the committees have been taking part in these closed-door hearings. Democrats saw the protest as merely a delay to protect the president against mounting evidence of misconduct. So they pressed on, questioning Laura Cooper, a senior Defense Department official who oversees Ukraine policy. Her testimony came a day after a top U.S. diplomat testified that he was told that the president withheld military aid to Ukraine unless Ukraine's president went public with a promise to investigate Democrats. Now, that is the quid pro quo that the president has been denying. Nancy Cordes has more on this day of political theater on Capitol Hill.
We want to know what's going on.
They staged their revolt in the basement of the U.S. Capitol. More than 24 House Republicans storming a secure area and refusing to leave a scheduled deposition.
By golly, if they're going to do it in public.
One member broadcasting the rebellion from behind closed doors.
We've been here for hours. By now, all the Democrat members have left.
What the Republicans are asking for is insane.
The sit-in delayed the testimony of Pentagon official Laura Cooper by 5 hours, the 8th private interview by Democrats and Republicans on the 3 committees currently handling the impeachment inquiry.
What's really going on here is yesterday, Ambassador Bill Taylor testified and gave the most sweeping and devastating testimony about President Trump's efforts to shake down the Ukrainian government.
Closed-door hearings on Capitol Hill are not unusual. The Republican-led Benghazi committee did several.
How is this different from that situation?
This is impeachment of a president of the United States. It's a different thing altogether. When we're talking about removing the president from office, it should be completely transparent.
Completely open.
Democrats cited the Clinton and Nixon impeachment proceedings, which included closed-door interviews. Can you understand their frustration? They want to know what's going on in a very important investigation.
Investigations are not public. When the investigation is done, there'll be public hearings. That's how it's always been done.
Tonight, Republicans say it's time to hold those public hearings. And in a letter obtained by CBS News, they tell Democrats that the witness they want to hear from most is that anonymous whistleblower who first revealed the contours of this Ukraine scandal. Nora.
All right, Nancy, let me ask you. President Zelensky of Ukraine has publicly denied that he felt pressure from President Trump. But what new details are we learning tonight about what was going on behind the scenes?
Well, CBS News has learned that Zelensky actually held a meeting with his top advisors back in May, even before he was sworn in, to discuss some of these unusual requests they were getting from President Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, and others. Apparently, Nora, they were very concerned about getting tangled up in a U.S. election.
All right, Nancy, thank you.
A dramatic scene unfolding in court today as lawmakers for President Trump try to keep his taxes out of the public eye. Today, the attorneys urged a federal appeals court in New York to block prosecutors from getting access to Trump's taxes and company business records. This is a case that could soon end up before the United States Supreme Court. And interestingly, this 2016 quote from President Trump's campaign came back up in court today.
The people, my people are so smart. And you know what else they say about my people? The polls. They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
CNN's Athena Jones is with me now, along with Harry Litman, who's a former U.S. attorney. You listened to this testimony today. Tell me exactly what happened, Athena.
Well, this is all about a fight, as you say, over Trump's tax returns, tax records, 8 years of records that were subpoenaed in August by the Manhattan DA, Cyrus Vance. Now, Trump's side argues that they shouldn't have to comply with the subpoena because President Trump, as president, has absolute immunity. And what was interesting here is you saw that clip played from the campaign where then candidate Trump says that he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, not lose any supporters. That very idea was brought up by a Manhattan DA, by attorneys for the Manhattan DA's office, saying, okay, so if you have this scenario, are you arguing, if you say the president is absolutely immune from prosecution, are you arguing that he could actually shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and nothing could be done about it? And sure enough, Trump's lawyer responded, that is correct. That is their position. So that was very interesting. There were a number of points that the judges challenged the Trump side on. They appeared very skeptical about this idea that he could block the subpoena based on this idea of absolute immunity. And of course, the lower court rejected that idea. They dismissed the Trump case that was trying to block the subpoena, saying that it's not unconstitutional. They excoriated that claim. They said it was repugnant. They said it was an overreach of executive